Thank you.
Hi, Senator. Are you all ready? Okay.
You could have gotten your haircut in a lot of places,
Right.
but you came here. What should that communicate?
Well, I'm proud to stand with Shelley Luther, and I'll tell you what happened to her was wrong. It was ridiculous to see somebody sentenced to 7 days in jail for cutting hair. That's not right. That's not justice. That's not Texas. And I got to tell you, Shelley, when she spoke up, she wasn't just speaking up for herself. She wasn't just speaking up for her family. She wasn't even just speaking up for the women and men who work in her small business. She was speaking up for 29 million Texans across our state. She was speaking up for justice. And I have to say, I watched the exchange in court where the judge demanded that she apologize to the elected officials for daring to open up her business. And I was disgusted by what I saw. In the United States, elected officials don't have the right to demand of citizens that they apologize for anything. That's not the way our system works. And I got to say, to see Shelley respond with dignity, with respect, she didn't get angry, she didn't yell and scream at the judge, but she simply said, I'm not going to apologize for feeding my kids. I'm not going to apologize for the people who work with me who need to feed my kids. That was beautiful, it was powerful, it was right. And so this morning, when she reopened for business, I got on a plane and I flew up from Houston. I needed a haircut anyway. And I figured that there wasn't a better place I could think of on the face of the planet to get a haircut this morning than right here.
Senator, let me ask you, hold on, Ben, hold on. Senator, let me ask you a question. Some conservatives have not been very happy with the governor's executive order that led to this. I know he's changed it, but talk to me about, because there have been in other cases down in the valley.
Yep.
Women were arrested, they haven't gotten nearly the attention that this case has.
Well, look, 2 beauticians in the valley were arrested. You had a police sting. What the hell are we doing when there's a police sting trying to go after beauticians for trying to earn a living? I mean, last I checked, there's some real criminals in the world. Last I checked, we've got drug dealers and murderers and violent criminals. And look, God bless the men and women of law enforcement who are on the front lines risking their lives at a dangerous time. But this is a time of crisis. We all understand that. And you know, Texans believe in common sense. If you look at how Shelley's running her business, she's wearing a mask, I'm wearing a mask. Inside, when I got my hair cut, they cleaned every seat down with disinfectant. The stylist who cut my hair, she cleaned her hands with disinfectant before the haircut. We all wore masks. Most Texans understand there's a balance. There's a balance of common sense. Yes, we want to prevent the spread of this disease. Yes, we want to be safe. We want to keep our families safe. All of us want to. But at the same time, people got to be able to earn a living. They got to be able to provide for their kids. And unfortunately, in this time of crisis, we've seen too many instances across the country of abuse of power. We've seen, you know, Shelley and I were talking about, she was a softball player in college. And we were talking about how in Colorado, a dad and his 6-year-old daughter were threatened with arrest for playing softball out in the public park. They weren't bothering anyone, they were just playing softball. In Pennsylvania, a woman got ticketed for driving her car alone. Wasn't a public threat to anyone for her to drive a car. We saw in Tennessee and in Mississippi people who went to church, and they stayed in their cars, they listened to the pastor over the radio, but they all parked together, they were socially distanced, and they all got ticketed. This is nuts, this is wrong. People paddleboarding, people on the beach, people running on their own. We should not let the fear, the concern of this crisis justify the abuse of power.
Senator,
Go ahead.
what level of concern do you have, though, for someone who might, as a comment when I read, we're given strict guidelines to get us through this pandemic, but someone gets celebrated for violating those guidelines. What level of concern do you have for the message that might send?
Look, what I'm celebrating is justice. It is, hold on, let me answer your question. It is unjust to sentence someone to 7 days in jail for cutting hair, particularly when you've got local politicians releasing violent criminals, releasing child molesters from jail, and we're going to lock up small business owners? That is crazy. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Senator, let me ask you about what do you say?
Last question. Jack, go ahead.
Well, I have another topic too, but let me ask you on Shelley's topic here. What do you say to other salon owners who abided by the governor's order, and yet this case is getting all the attention?
Well, listen, number one, under the statewide order, salons can open. As of today, they're all allowed to open, and they're allowed to open. And also, I'm glad that the governor clarified that nobody should be sent to jail for violating the terms of the order. That was important. I'm also glad that the Texas Supreme Court stepped in and acted in the interest of justice. That's why we have a court system. Texas Supreme Court stepped in and ordered that Shelley be released. That's how the rule of law is supposed to operate. And you know, look, it's been for me, I think, about 3 months since I've had a haircut. Not only have I been working at home for a number of weeks, but prior to that, you may recall back in March, I self-quarantined twice because I had encountered 2 people who tested positive for coronavirus, and I made the decision, even though the physicians were advising me I didn't need to self-quarantine, I did it anyway out of an abundance of caution. I said, I'm going to stay home for 14 days because I don't want to endanger anyone's health. And so it'd been, I think, about 3 months since I'd gotten a haircut. Heidi was laughing at me. She said if I went much longer, I was going to be sporting a full-on mullet. But, you know, this week, the Senate was back in session. The Senate was back in session, and we were there. And I have to admit, I found myself just kind of looking around at my colleagues. And it sure did look like just about every other senator in the body had gotten a haircut. Maybe I'm wrong. Actually, to give credit, I'm pretty sure Rand Paul, he's got a beard sporting that's going a little bit Duck Dynasty on him. So I can't say everyone, but I guarantee you there were a number of them who've gotten haircuts.
But Senator, should everyone have done this? You call it a crisis. Should all the salons have just ignored the governor? All the restaurants ignored the governor? All the bars ignored the governor? And just open and go do their business?
The right answer that I think most Texans understand is a common sense balance. And this is true now, and it's also true going forward. We need to take reasonable steps to flatten the curve to stop the spread of this virus. We also need to let people provide for their families. We got 34 million people who have lost their jobs in the last 2 months. That's 20% of the American workforce. And if we keep going down this road of just shutting down the entire economy, there are going to be a lot of lives that are lost, because we know that economic devastation, that poverty, people's life savings going up in smoke, small businesses that people have poured their hearts into being destroyed. We know that if we keep going down this road, we're going to see increased mental illness, increased rates of depression, increased rates of suicide, increased substance abuse, increased alcohol abuse. That's going to cost lives. And so, look, this stuff is hard. It's a hard balance, but I think most Texans understand we've got to strike a balance. We've got to be proactive and follow sound science and medical advice and keep people safe, but we also need to let people provide for their families, and Texans want to get back to work, and I'm encouraged we're on the path to do that. I'll tell you, I'm proud. Shelley, when you stood up there, you stood for Texans all across this state, and you stood for Americans all across the country who believe in liberty. And you did so with a simple, quiet grace that spoke volumes. And so I'm proud to stand with you. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. It's a lot. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you, guys.
Senator, I just wanted to ask you about Michael Flynn. Okay. Shelley, can we...
Give him a big hug and say thank you so much.
Shelley, can we get a few words with you? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wanted to ask you, first, your reaction for the senator showing up today. What did that mean to you personally?
Well, as everyone knows, when everybody was living all of this and the reaction, I was in jail the last 2 days, so I'm getting out and just kind of figuring out everything that you guys have already seen, you know, all of the effects that are happening. Senator Cruz coming is something that I would have never dreamed of, and my daughter getting to meet someone so influential, it's overwhelming in a great way, and I'm not going to take any of this experience for granted.
What would you say to someone else of another business, of one of like your own? I realize you're allowed to open today. To someone else who's considering violating an order.
Do you have any positive questions? Do you have anything positive?
I think that's why we're here, right? Because
Right. So no one has to worry. No one has to violate anything because it's open. We're open. We're open 10 days earlier because Governor Abbott reconsidered what he thought. He reconsidered. He opened the lines of communication, and that's what people in position need to do. Not just shut us out and say they're right. He opened up the lines of communication, got advice from a lot more people than who they call the experts. That he went down to people in the trenches and said what's going on, and that's what real politicians do. That's what they do. Not just shut us out and demand that we do things.
Was there anything the senator said that stood out to you?
All of it. Everything he said. I applauded him for not getting his hair cut because we all know that Clay Jenkins has his hair cut and dyed. We're professionals. We can see that. While he's telling everybody to wear a mask, I've never seen him in a mask. So all of these things going on where do as I say, not as I do, that is not okay. So you need to lead by example. If you're going to be a person in a high position like that, you lead by example. And stop telling everybody else what to do as if we're not important.
Is that the way it feels?
Do you have a question?
I was just curious, did you personally talk to the governor last week or his staff, and what did they tell you, what did they ask you after, you know, it became clear you weren't going to follow the order and you were going to stay open?
They knew that I was staying open the entire time, and I wasn't going to close, and what I met by phone, Mr. Huffines, which is the leader of his task force to open. We spoke about why salons were closed, and we spoke about what ideas that I had or what were the guidelines I was using to open the salon. And we have plexiglass in front of our nails tech and all of these things that we wanted to make sure that if he was going to open, that we were doing the most we possibly could to protect the clients and the stylists.
And what was their reaction to that?
They were just taking it in, and I wasn't the only one they were speaking to, but I was one of the salon owners.
What have you learned during all this, either about yourself or about what have you had your eyes open to?
I've learned that this is bigger. This is bigger than what it was at the beginning, and what I mean by bigger, this isn't about opening a salon. It's not about a haircut. This is about all of us coming together and saying we have rights. It doesn't matter what color you are, what age you are. It doesn't matter. Let's all agree on one thing. We were born with rights, and as long as we stick together, we will keep those rights. But we're not going to just back down anymore and let the government just tell us what to do and us be okay with it.
Let me ask you, obviously a lot has been made of your GoFundMe. I think it's up to, what, 500,000? What do you plan on doing with that now?
So I have a lot of attorney fees, of course, and I've got a couple months of mortgage to catch up on. But we have decided, and obviously I just got out of jail, but we have already planned on spreading some of that gift today in South Dallas. I've already reached out trying to get in contact with the two ladies in Laredo, and I would like to pay for any of their attorney fees, any citations they have, and maybe give them a little bit of Head Start money.
And you've gotten obviously a lot of support, not just here in Texas, but nationally. But we've also heard from people who said, they don't think that it's fair that you've gotten all this attention, and that they've, abided by the rules. What do you say to those folks who did, they stayed closed and all that, even if they supported you, but they stayed closed, they abided by the order, and, they're not happy that you've gotten all this notoriety?
I respect any kind of opinion anyone has. I'm not living in their shoes. I don't know what they're going through. That was their right to do whatever they wanted to do. I had to do what I felt was right in the situation, and whether they support it or not, they're getting, if they're a salon owner, they're getting to open 10 days earlier.
And you think that's because of your case, or?
I think it has a lot to do with my case. But I think it has a lot to do with other small business owners and other people rallying across the United States saying, okay, wait a second, something's not right. When did a guideline or an ordinance become more important than kids being fed?
How concerned are you about the rest of the case, right? Because your case is still going forward, right?
It is. I just wake up day by day and thank God that I'm here every day and just take it one step at a time.
Are you worried of any of your employees to be affected in the future?
They're not my employees. They're small business owners, but they're here on their own. They have never been told they have to be here. So they're here because they want to be here. They're adults and they can make their own decisions.
If you had to do this all over again, would you?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't change anything?
I would not change anything.